Imagine withdrawing $20 from the ATM for lunch, only to later discover that $12,000 has vanished from your account. All because a stranger at the ATM pulled off a magic trick. This nightmare just became reality for people in Boston. What's even worse is the bank allowed it to happen. So stay tuned in this video because I'm going to tell you how scammers are using sleight of hand to drain your bank account and how you can avoid being the next victim. Hey cyber heroes, I'm Boyd Cluess, internationally recognized cybersecurity expert, author, and speaker. And today we are diving into the new ATM scam that's leaving people's bank accounts emptier than an Arby's restaurant during the lunch rush. But seriously, who eats at Arby's? I've literally never met anybody. Like this video and consider subscribing to the channel so you stay up to date with all the news and trends and avoid being the next victim of a scammer. So here's what happened. Megan Bates went to the Bank of America ATM in Boston. Now, she was looking to get some money from the ATM so she could join her colleagues for lunch, and she processed her transaction as normal until she walked away. This is where a gentleman called out to her to let her know that there was still some money stuck in the ATM and she needed to come close out the transaction. Sound pretty helpful, right? Absolutely not. This is actually where the scam begins, and it just goes downhill from here. Because this scam was actually choreographed better than a Broadway musical. Let me know in the comments, do you like musicals? I happen to love Phantom of the Opera. Anywho, has anyone ever walked up to you and tried to start a random conversation with you at the ATM? What do you do in those cases? Let me know. Now you may be thinking, Boyd, how does talking to someone at an ATM lead to losing $12,000? What does that have to do with it? It has everything to do with it. Everything. Let me break it down. You see, this scammer was using a classic distraction technique. And this is something that attackers do. They prey on people's emotions. So what he did was presented himself as a helpful stranger by showing Megan that, hey, you left money in this ATM. By presenting himself as a nice guy, not taking the money, it lowered her defense mechanism, which is exactly what the scammer wanted. So Megan returns back to the ATM and the guy offers to help her to close out the transaction. So she handed the card over to the gentleman and he proceeds to put the card into the ATM to close out the transaction. And he hands her card back. So Megan gets her card, she gets her cash, smile on her face. She is going on about her business to have lunch with her colleagues. Perfect, right? Absolutely not. All right, cyber heroes. So this is where the magic comes in. You see, that card that the scammer handed back to Megan, it wasn't her card. And that was the problem here. In fact, when she later looked at the card, it had someone's name on it by the name of Victor. Do you know somebody named Victor that be scheming? Now, it continues to get worse. And I already know what some of y'all are thinking right now. You probably already commented before you even finished watching the video. Boyd, you can't withdraw more than $500 out of an ATM, blah, blah, blah. Keep watching, keep watching. Okay, so these scammers were able to make 3 separate withdrawals of $4,000 from Megan's account. But here is the problem. The scammer did not act alone. He actually had a female accomplice that went into the bank locations, 3 different locations, and was able to withdraw money. So the question then becomes, how was someone able to go in and withdraw money from the clerk counter without identification? Who do you think should be responsible for this? There's actually surveillance footage of this lady withdrawing money from the account, and she looks nothing like Megan. And so like I was saying, guys, this was like a magic trick, but instead of pulling a rabbit out of the hat, they pulled $12,000 out of Megan's account without her even knowing. But fortunately in this situation, the Bank of America actually refunded the money. Megan contacted the police as well as Bank of America, and they launched an investigation to try to determine who these 2 people were. Now, there is no surveillance footage or video of the male scammer, but there is some pictures of the female scammer that I'm going to put up right here. So if you are in the Boston area and maybe you've seen this young lady, don't ask if you could borrow some money. Turn her in. As a cybersecurity expert with almost 2 decades of experience and over a decade of payment security experience, I've worked extensively in banking and payments. And people are often misguided in thinking that video surveillance and those type of things will help them get their money back. And that is not the intent behind those things. The true intent behind these security controls, such as locks on ATMs and video cameras, is actually to help the businesses maintain regulatory compliance with different things such as FFIEC, NIST, PCI DSS, etc. Not for consumer protection, but for business protection. The reason being, if a breach happens and an investigation is done and it is determined that the company was not compliant with the required frameworks, then they will be fined and be liable for all of the people that were impacted by the breach. So as much as you would want to believe that these security controls and banks are putting these things in place to protect you, it is really to protect them. And some of you may be thinking, but they have video cameras. Okay. Now keep in mind that video footage is not always available just because you asked to get it, nor will the bank always use it to perform an investigation on your behalf. So it's important that you put yourself in the best position when using credit cards or debit cards to maximize the potential liability that you have for using that card. And that's why I do not recommend using debit cards. Use a credit card whenever possible. So I have a few more tips to give you guys about staying safe in this digital age so that you can make sure you are not the victim of the latest scam. Number one, do not use ATMs outside of a location, even if it is your bank. Don't do it. Number two, don't use ATMs when strange people are around. Number three, don't be so in a rush that you are unaware of your surroundings. Be very careful, especially for people offering you advice, pretending to be helpful, because it lowers your defense mechanism. And number four, set up automatic alerts for every transaction that is made on your bank account. Now, depending on how many accounts you have, that could be annoying, but at the same time, you have to understand your risk tolerance. Because if you have these notifications, that you will know if some money is being spent that you didn't authorize. And if someone claims that there's an issue with the ATM, don't take their word for it. Contact the branch or something of that nature. So now I want to hear from you guys. Have you ever encountered a suspicious person at an ATM? Has anyone ever done something like this to you? I'm curious to know. And if so, where did it happen? Did the bank give you your money back, or did you have to fight them? If you got some value from this video, give it a like, consider subscribing to the channel so that you can stay up to date with the latest scams, trends, and information to help save your pocketbook from scammers, as well as information about advancing your career into cybersecurity. And if you think this video is wild, you should check out this next one, because thieves are using super glue to steal your money at an ATM. So guys, that's it. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.